Hey everyone, it's Mostly Casual Commander. I'm BK. Subscribe, Discord, Patreon, etc. J-Man's up first. He's playing Solphim, Mayhem Dominus, trying to burn us out by doubling up on non-combat damage. Busterkins is going to try to infect his way to victory with Ixhel, Scion of Atraxa, and all of her infectious friends. Scott brought Ezuri, Stalker of Spheres, to the table, hoping to pass out a bunch of poison counters and proliferate constantly. And I joined the Obzon Toxic / Infect Smashy plan with an upgraded Corrupting Influence precon, swapping Ixhel for Vishgraz. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video for an appearance from my fat cat Meatball. He's so chunky. J-Man kicked things off with a mountain and passed the turn to Busterkins, who plays a tapped Path of Ancestry as his land for turn before passing to Scott. And on his first turn, he'll play an Ink Moth Nexus. This thing can be activated and become a 1/1 flyer with Infect. What? Onto my turn, I play Undergrowth Stadium as my land, and then I pass back to J-Man, concluding our very fair first turn of Magic the Gathering the card game cards. He plays a mountain and says go, back over to Busterkins. He plays a forest as his land for turn, and then he casts Skrelv's Hive. Is that how you pronounce that? So on his upkeep, he'll lose a life and start making little mites. He passes the turn to Scott, who plays Yavimaya Coasts and gets sporty.
Let's make Inkmoth into a 1/1 with Infect.
Oh, jeez.
Hit Busterkins.
Oh, snap.
When Blink Moth hit Busterkins, he accidentally clicked down on his life, but he will correct that in just a moment. Scott passed, and on my turn, I played an Exotic Orchard as my land, and then I cast Swiftfoot Boots to protect my future stuff. I pass the turn to J-Man, who plays another mountain as his land. Big surprise there. And then he casts Stone Coil Serpent, where X equals 3. Before passing the turn, back over to Busterkins, who gets a Phyrexian Might on his upkeep, corrects his life total. See, I told you he would. Then he plays Temple of Silence as his land, scrying 1 to the bottom, before passing the turn back to Scott. He plays a Verdant Catacombs as his land, and then he'll go ahead and crack that, taking 1 life and finding a Breeding Pool, having that enter the battlefield untapped, therefore taking 2 more life, dropping to 37 before passing the turn to me. I play Ghostly Prison on my turn, because I don't want to get attacked. There, I said it. On J-Man's turn, he played another mountain and cast his commander, Solphim, Mayhem Dominus. So all of his non-combat damage shenanigans will be doubled, which is not nothing. On Busterkin's turn, he makes another Phyrexian Might, draws, and plays another forest before moving into combat. He hits Scott with his 1/1 Toxic, pinging him a point of life and giving him 1 poison counter. On Busterkin's end step, Scott casts Mystical Tutor. So Scott will go tutoring up a Expand the Sphere from his library, putting it on top, enabling future Proliferate shenanigans. And then he'll cast Prologue to Phyrexia, giving each one of his opponents a poison counter and then drawing a card, which is, of course, the Expand the Spheres that he just put up on top of his library with his Mystical Tutor. Then onto Scott's turn proper, he'll draw and play a Flooded Grove as his land before casting Expand the Sphere. So this will allow him to look at the top 6 cards of his library and optionally play up to 2 lands, or he can proliferate if he doesn't want to play those lands.
0 lands, so we are going to proliferate twice.
Of note, he should not have revealed those cards.
Give away. What about proliferating your own?
You could also give J-Man another 1+1 over there.
You know, you guys are speaking some real smart things.
I would like to cut the cards randomly going.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Go
Just
for
making
it.
sure we're tracking that this is a thing.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And then
what I
just go ahead and
appreciate. Okay. Okay.
Table banter. He passes the turn over to me, and I play Kodama's Reach. So I will go find a couple of forests, putting 1 onto the battlefield tapped. Then I'll play that other forest as my land for turn before passing to J-Man. He plays Spitfire Lagak. So when he plays lands, that thing will start pinging his opponents, replaced by Solphim will each take 2 damage. And then he goes into combat with his commander at Scott, dropping him 5 points of life, down to 28. On to Busterkin's turn, again on his upkeep, he makes a Phyrexian Might. Then he draws and plays a Plains before casting his commander, Ixhel, Scion of Atraxa. And with that up, he'll move into combat, swinging his 2 Mites at Scott, dealing 2 damage and giving him 2 more poison counters. On his end step, Ixhel will trigger, getting him the top card of each one of our libraries, exiled face down, kind of like Ganti. On to Scott's turn, he plays Pendlehaven, allowing him to pump up one of his creatures. Then he casts Contentious Plan. This will have him proliferate each one of our poison counters, drawing him a card. He passes the turn to me. I play my own Ixhel, Scion of Atraxa. Seems pretty alright. And then I move to equip my Swiftfoot boots to protect her. But in response,
With your own card,
What
bro.
the heck, man?
that's the card he stole from me.
I gave him 2 life, though.
There you
Joke's
go.
on you.
Back up to 40.
Oh, no. That was my whole turn pass.
Man, I was really looking forward to getting some additional card advantage from Ixhel. On J-Man's turn, he casts Cathartic Reunion, discarding 2 cards and drawing 3. Then he'll play his land for turn, triggering his Lagak, and again being replaced by Solphim, so we all take 2. Then he casts Gamble. He'll go find something from his library, put it into his hand, and then he chose Scott to randomly select one that will hit his graveyard. It was a Heartless Hidetsugu, which was exactly the card that he tutored for. So J-Man is big sad. Sadness hit the stack. On Busterkin's turn, again he makes a Might, then he drops a Swamp Drop, before casting a second Swords to Plowshares. Can you believe it? He'll target Stonecoil Serpent, who gets exiled but gains J-Man a few points of life. Busterkins moves his creatures to the red zone, attacking both J-Man and Scott. Scott activates his Ink Moth Nexus and powers up his Blink Moth with his Pendlehaven. And with it now being a 2/3, it can block Ixhel, which is erroneously tapped, which Busterkins fixes in a moment. And with Blinkmoth having Infect, it'll of course shrink Ixhel with giving it 2 -1/-1 counters on it. J-Man blocked 2 out of the 3 mites attacking him, and then Ixhel triggers on Busterkins' end step. Scott plays a Misty Rainforest as his land for turn. Then he casts Bone Sabers, sweet 40k equipment that's going to throw around a bunch of +1/+1 counters on something. He passes the turn, and I play Overgrown Farmland as my land for turn, and then I cast my commander, Vishgraz, the Doom Hive. When it ETBs, I get to make 3 Phyrexian Might tokens. Also, it's a +13/+13, seeing the poison counters on all of my opponents. I move to equip boots, and in response,
Oh my god, I swear to God.
Response to,
Here's another Swords to Plowshares. Here's another one. I'm sure you're going to use it. Hey, wait a minute. Hang on. Hear me out. Hear me out. Don't.
Oh, that's a good argument. I like that.
your own Mortify.
Twice in one game? Really?
but Scott sniffs out an opportunity.
You want to make a deal?
I would like to make it.
We agree I won't attack Scott for 2 turns if he counters that spell, which he does by cracking his Misty Rainforest, taking a damage, fetching up an island, and then casting Corrupted Resolve. That will counter my own Mortify cast by Busterkins, because Busterkins is poisoned. And then let's not forget that my Swiftfoot Boots activation was on the stack, so it equips Vishgraz, I move into combat, smash Busterkins for 16 commander damage, and give him another poison counter as well. Thanks, Scott. Then on J-Man's turn, he plays Maze of Ith, triggering his Lagak. We all take 2, and now he has some defense up as well. He casts Wormcoil Engine. That thing's great. Then he passes to Busterkins, who makes another Phyrexian Might on his upkeep at the cost of a life. He plays Tainted Wood as his land for turn. Then Scott and him get to talking, and Scott agrees to play Nature's Claim on my Ghostly Prison, allowing Busterkins to attack into me without having to pay mana. So he swings at me, and I take a couple more poison counters, thanks to Toxic. I remember his commander's shrunk, so no need to attack there. Then he casts White Sun's Twilight, where X equals 5. So he gains 5 life, makes 5 more Phyrexian Mites, and then kills all of the creatures in the battlefield except those 5 mites that he just created. I accidentally put my Swiftfoot Boots in the graveyard because I'm an idiot. I fix that in a moment though. So we all put our creatures into the bin, and J-Man gets to make 2 worms thanks to Wormcoil Engine. One of them with lifelink and one of them with death touch. Each one of them are 3/3s. Then he passes the turn, Scott plays an island and activates his Ink Moth Nexus. He'll then equip his Bone Sabers to Blink Moth, move into combat, triggering Bone Sabers, giving 4 +1/+1 counters, and knocking Busterkins out of the game. He did not see that one coming. Then Scott casts Smell Fear, proliferating, and then he can have Blink Moth fight one of the worms. In this case, it's the one with lifelink, of course. So J-Man will gain a few points of life, that worm will die, and then Scott passes the turn. Over to me, I play Viridian Corruptor. I blow up Scott's Bone Sabers, probably a little too late, and see the writing on the wall.
So, J-Man, it's up to you, bud, because I'm dead. All right.
With not much else to do, I cast Norn's Annex, paying Phyrexian mana with my life, and maybe trying to discourage my opponents from attacking me. On to J-Man's turn, he plays a Gilded Lotus, hoping to survive another turn and take advantage of that mana. He moves into combat with his worm at Scott, and pings him down for 3. Then onto Scott's turn, he'll draw, play another island, and then he'll cast his commander, Ezuri, Stalker of Spheres. He pays the additional 3, so when it enters the battlefield, he'll proliferate twice. And he proliferates on all of the desirable proliferating things. He'll draw 2 cards, and then he'll pass the turn back over to me. I cast Painful Truths, where the converge is 3 colors, so I'll draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. Sadly, I don't really find anything good. I play a Swamp, and then I cast a Cultivate. That'll have me find a basic forest, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and grab a Swamp to my hand. Then I pass the turn over to J-Man, who casts Dracuseth, Maw of Flames. So when that thing attacks, it can sling around a bunch of damage at multiple targets. On to Scott's turn, he plays Tezzeret's Gambit. He gets to draw 2, Proliferate, which proliferates me to death. And then because he proliferated, Ezuri triggers and he gets to draw an additional card. It's pretty good. I clean up my board, and then Scott plays a command tower skinned as Cybertron from a Secret Lair drop, which is dope. Then he casts Inexorable Tide. So whenever he casts a spell, he'll proliferate. But Scott doesn't have a 1-drop, so he has to pass. J-Man plays a mountain, and then he recasts his commander, Solphim. He sees the line, he attacks with Dracuseth and the Worm. Dracuseth will trigger, dealing 8 points of damage to Scott's face, 6 damage to Ezuri, and 10 points in combat damage, knocking Scott out of the game and making J-Man the winner. Congratulations, buddy. It's not the first time you've snuck out a victory at the last minute. Keep my eye on you. And there you have it, that's the game. We had a couple little minor mistakes or misplays along the way, but overall I think it was a fun game, featuring these new commanders from Phyrexia All Will Be One. Let us know what you thought about it in the comments, and as always, thank you for watching.